Hi everyone. Oh, it's me, Chris, and my firstborn son and heir to this game collection behind me, Rhodes, also known as Rhodey, also known as Rhodey Toady, also known as Toady, also known as Toad. Anyway, it's good to see you. Happy birthday, LTN. I'm one of the co-founders, former CEO, and yeah, just excited to celebrate with you guys. And I don't know, Coker sent me some questions to answer, so I'm going to answer those. When we first announced LTN, even the name Love Thy Nerd, it was kind of crazy. You know, I said even at the beginning of this video, I'm a co-founder. In reality, we had, I don't know, hundreds of co-founders, people that were with us from the beginning in the original Facebook group that was just called Working Title because we didn't have a name for ourselves. And the name Love Thy Nerd actually came out of a post in that group where we just said, hey, help us name this thing. And one of our community members, Mila at the time, gave us that name, and as soon as I saw it, I just knew that was who we were going to be. I feel like it was cheeky and it encapsulated not only who we were and our humor, but also just our mission to love nerds. So yeah, when we did that first, I think we did like a live stream or something and got to announce all that stuff, like it was just rad to be on mission together, not only with my best friends in the room, you know, the other founders, but all the other founders from across the country and even the world that helped to start this thing.
It is hard to believe that it has been 5 years since we started this thing called Love Thy Nerd. And thinking back to that moment when we first announced that the temporary name of Working Title would become Love Thy Nerd, I remember it was a exciting moment, also a little bit terrifying, and mostly that I was just grateful to be living a life that gave me the opportunity to do this thing with some of the best people that I knew. To start a ministry that we didn't know what it would turn into, and now it's still going, 5 years strong. That's a real blessing.
Happy birthday, LTN. It's so cool that it's 5 years. 5 years, it's crazy. And it's a good time to stop and think about what God has done through this amazing ministry. So 5 years ago, I sat down with the other 5 founders and announced on a Facebook live stream to the people that were already supporting us that we were going to start this thing that we decided was going to be called Love Thy Nerd, that was going to serve nerds and point nerds to Jesus all over the world, all over the country. And so, yeah, how did I feel in that moment? Excited and terrified, but mostly hopeful and determined, I think, and incredibly encouraged. Like, it was amazing to see how many people were already supporting us. I couldn't believe how many people showed up to that live stream. And even in the moments leading up to that, there were literally dozens of people that reached out to me personally and said, like, whatever you're doing next, I'm in. You know, and like, I don't know anybody who starts a ministry or a nonprofit that kind of goes that way. Like, usually you dream up an idea and you go out and find support, but there were people coming to us and saying, like, whatever you're doing next, I'm in and I want to support it, and let me know how I can help, both financially and just with their time and energy. Like, I literally had a database of some 50 writers who had written for Game Church and things that I'd done in the past that were like, whatever you're doing next, let me help. I want to write. And so, yeah, we had an amazing launch of the website because of that. And really just, yeah, in that moment I was feeling excited and hopeful to see what God was going to do. I really believed God was in it. I really believed his hand was upon it, and that's proven to be true. But yeah, terrified too, because, you know, when that many people are showing up to support you, you feel this, just responsibility. like these people are supporting us, they're giving us their time and energy and attention, and like, I don't want to mess this up, you know? But ultimately I was hopeful and excited, and yeah, like I said, God's hand has been in it, and I see his hand in it to this day.
Over the 5 years, the mission of LTN has certainly evolved, and it's been really neat to see that. It's been neat to see how we've expanded from, just doing convention stuff and online stuff and conferences and, just meeting people. I've loved to see how we've gotten involved with exhibitors at conventions and been able to build relationships with people in the industry and find ways to serve them in that capacity has been super cool. Probably my favorite things that LTN has accomplished has been creating the atmosphere of safety and sanctuary that we have, that anybody, regardless of their faith status, can be who they are. And I think that's really, really important in this day and age with such a polarizing society and Facebook and all that stuff. It's so nice to have a place where nerds can land and just be their nerdy selves. I love that.
I don't know that the mission of Love Thy Nerd has changed from the beginning. I think that what has changed and what has evolved is our understanding of how to reach into nerd culture, how to be the hands and feet of Jesus to nerds and to churches that want to reach nerds. What resources were necessary? Where were there pain points? Where were there areas of community that needed the most love? I think that over time and over the years of getting to know people in the community, finding out what they needed, how they needed to feel loved. And I'm so proud that we've had the opportunity to serve so many people and show them that there is a place in the kingdom of God for them, that there is a place in God's family for them, where they may not have thought that there was before.
How has the mission of Love Thy Nerd evolved in 5 years? I really don't think it has, and that's probably the great thing about Love Thy Nerd is that the methodology that we used to live out that mission, I think, certainly has changed. The way we go to conventions has changed a lot. The way we do, the ministry we do online has changed dramatically. There wasn't a streaming ministry really when we launched LTN, and then now that's a huge part of Love Thy Nerd's ministry. So we've been dreaming up, I think, Love Thy Nerd for a while, especially in the last few years. Has restructured. Its leadership has changed. A lot of things have changed pretty significantly, but it's always been about being the love of Jesus to nerds and nerd culture. And we do that by loving and serving our nerdy neighbors. So that's something I'm really proud of about LTN, is that even as I've stepped out of leadership, the mission's still the same. And I'm really proud of Matt and Bubba and the team that they've put together, because they're doing what we set out to do. And that's a beautiful thing. It's really easy to drift as a nonprofit, as a ministry, to drift away from the mission God's called us to, because there's always pressures, right, to do ministry a certain way. And there are countless people that will expect you to do things a certain way, or challenge you, tempt you to do things an easier way that would be unfaithful. And so I'm thankful that Love Thy Nerd hasn't done that. It's remained faithful to the mission. And so even though the way it goes about doing ministry has constantly evolved, I think it has to, the mission really hasn't changed. So, kudos to the leaders of Love Thy Nerd and to the ministry for staying the course. Really proud of y'all.
As far as favorite memories, I feel like LTN Con was always a highlight for me. Not necessarily the planning of it, that's always a nightmare, but the actual attending and, just that part family reunion, part conference vibe. It was really obviously bittersweet to miss this last LTN con because we were having this little guy. But yeah, it was always just such a highlight for me, and specifically communion, like taking communion together, being unified with this group of people from all over the place was just always such a special moment. I'd also say I always really loved our yearly planning retreats. I should say I loved when we did them in person. I hated when we had to do, because of COVID and other stuff, we had to do them online. That was always such a drag to me. But when we got to do them in person, and these other 5 people that we started this thing together, and we were so close and worked together for so long, but we're literally spread out across the country. It was always really special to get together in person and be able to just dream and execute on things to better reach nerds. So
Some of my favorite memories from Love Thy Nerd from the past 5 years, honestly, are some of the earliest memories. Those first few conventions where we jumped in. We didn't know what we were doing. And we took some of our closest and dearest friends and ministry partners with us to test the waters and see what needs there were and make sure that we were contributing something to the community that would actually help, that would not just be doing something for the sake of doing it. It was crazy. It was chaotic. We tried a bunch of things. Some of them worked, some of them didn't, but it was really precious time. And speaking of really precious time, also the first Love Thy NerdCon, seeing some people that we had never met in person, seeing some people that we hadn't seen in person in a very long time, being able to share that space to play games, to give awards, to just do life together, to be a family, and to learn together what it means to be the hands and feet in Jesus in the nerd community. And also our leadership retreats, which were always difficult and always a really good time of fellowship with my fellow leaders, my fellow founders. We would fight, but they were fights. They were good fights because they were fights of caring so deeply about our mission and our vision and wanting to just lead this organization in the best way that we could. They were definitely times of growth for all of us. They were times that we grew closer. They were times that we made Love Thy Nerd better.
Living out the mission. I mean, you go to any nerd convention across the country, Gen Con, especially the board game ones, Gen Con or like PAX Unplugged or Origins, and you'll see lots of Love Thy Nerd lanyards. But you'll talk to game designers who know Love Thy Nerd. I think most of the game designers there, most of the game developers there have had a really good interaction with Love Thy Nerd. They've been served by our missionaries. They probably know Matt and Bubba, like personally. Matt and Bubba have probably built a meaningful relationship with them. And that's just the way it is across this industry. So I'm also really proud of LTN for building bridges with other nerd ministries. It would be really easy to sort of just build our own little kingdom, but I'm really proud of the way Matt and Bubba have led out and connecting with other nerd ministries to join hands and doing good work in the world. So yeah, I think that's probably what I'm most proud of. On a personal level, I don't think, and I don't want to make this about me, I really don't, but I just think it's cool that I was able to publish a book during my time with Love Thy Nerd, and I want to really stress this wouldn't have been possible were it not for the support of Love Thy Nerd and just its credibility. The credibility we developed as a expert resource in the world of video games and nerd culture. And so, yeah, my book, Know Thy Gamer, A Parent's Guide to Video Games, I think it's just really cool that this exists. And that LTN, there's a book that embodies the mission and vision and values, I think, of Love Thy Nerd. In fact, the last chapter is called Games or Mission, and it really is my experience, growing into this ministry that I was able to partner with for 4 years of my life with Love Thy Nerd, and the type of missions we do and the way we approach missions. And so, yeah, I just think it's rad that we were able to do that. So that's something I'm proud of. I'm proud of the writers team that we put together too. Like when we started Love Thy Nerd, I had 60 writers reach out to me and say like, hey, I want to write for LTN. And like, I want to help build this thing. And we have countless amazing resource articles about why video games matter and why comics matter and, why nerd culture matters. And we've got amazing articles on Dungeons and Dragons and just, I think people look to LTN as a space to understand nerd culture from a Christian perspective. I think non-believers come to the website and find some of those articles and the podcasts and just the whole ethos of Love Thy Nerd and meet us on mission, and they think these people are not normal Christians. They're not the Christians I've run into in the past. And I think that's a beautiful and wonderful thing, and that's why LTN has been able to point so many people to Jesus. Definitely that launching was a huge ministry. Like I said, just having some, 50 writers reach out to me and say, whatever you're doing next, I want to be a part, was just insane and incredible. And we had so many other people outside of the writers just reaching out to us and saying, I'm in. And that was incredible. Another favorite memory of mine was a couple different times. Ryan Gare and I went out with a guy we met, a game designer we met at Gen Con. And it's just a guy we'd built a relationship with over time. Ryan, even more so than me, but I got to be good friends with this guy as well. I'm not going to say his name because you could probably look him up, and I don't want you to do that. But this guy's not a Christian, but after just building a relationship with this guy, just showing up in his life as we saw him at conventions and things, the last time we hung out with him, last couple times we hung out with him, I mean, he was asking us, like, why do you guys do what you do? Why do you believe in Jesus? And he was asking us how we could believe in Jesus when there's so much brokenness and suffering in the world. And we're having these really deep conversations. And the amazing thing about it was that we weren't forcing this conversation. We weren't going like, so do you know where you're going to go if you die? But rather this guy was inviting us to share what we believe and why. And also like opened up to us about some personal struggles he was having, his struggles with depression. He shared with us how hard it is to be a game designer, and how costly it is. It really is a difficult life for a lot of people. As much as we think, making games looks like so much fun, it's a really difficult industry to break into and to do well in. And this guy just shared his heart with us, and we built a lasting friendship, and resulted in, a person who now has heard about the hope that we have in Jesus. And I think those are my favorite stories. And there's so many of those kinds of stories in the history of Love Thy Nerd, of just people asking us, like the Bible says, about the hope that we have in Christ, like we read in 1 Peter. I think if we're living on mission, if we're living out that mission of being the love of Jesus to nerds and nerd culture, people are going to ask. And that's the raddest thing about LTN, is that as we as an organization have lived out that mission, people keep asking, tell me about why you believe in Jesus. Tell me about what you guys are doing. Why are you doing this stuff? What are you about? And I just think it's really cool that God has continued to provide those opportunities as the leadership of Love Thy Nerd and Love Thy Nerd as a whole continues just to be faithful to its mission.
Happy birthday, Love Thy Nerd.
Again, happy birthday. I love you guys. I miss you guys. I'm still around, but obviously raising this little guy, he's been super good. Look at him. That's how we do it here in the Gwaltney house. This is how he always is. We never have issues. Isn't that right, bud? You smile for everybody? No smiles? Okay, love you. Bye.